What's up guys, and welcome to my Sunday 4.2 updated guide. In this video I'm taking you over everything you do need to know in order to understand and build Sunday, including a kit overview, best Lightcones, best Relic sets and Planar Ornaments, main stats and substat priorities, and finally some general team building ideas. Sunday's basic attack does imaginary damage based off his attack to a designated enemy. His skill enables a designated ally and their summon to take action and also increase their damage up by 30%. If the target has a summon, the damage boost effect is further boosted by an additional 50% for 2 turns. Using skill on the Beatified will recover a skill point, and using the ability on a character that is Harmony will not trigger the immediate action effect. His ultimate regenerates 20% of the max energy for a designated ally and turns their target and their summon into the Beatified. The Beatified have their crit damage increased by an amount equal to 30% of Sunday's crit damage plus 12%. The duration of the Beatified decreases by 1 at the start of Sunday's turn, lasting a total of 3 turns and only takes effect on the most recent target of his ultimate. His talent will increase the crit rate of the person you buff with the skill by 20% for 3 turns. His technique will make it to where the first time Sunday uses an ability on a target in the next battle, the target's damage out will increase by 50% for 2 turns. For his bonus traces, his A2 will make it to where when he uses his ultimate, if the energy regenerated for the target is less than 40, increases the regenerated energy to 40. His A4 gives Sunday 25 energy at the start of the battle, and his A6 will dispel a debuff from a target when using skill on them. For his Eidolons, his E1 will make it to where when Sunday uses skill to buff a target, they will be able to ignore 16% of the enemy target's defense to deal damage, and their summon can ignore 40% of the enemy targets to deal damage. The effect will last for 2 turns. His E2 will make it to where the first time you use ultimate, you will recover 2 skill points, and the damage up by the Beatified increases by 30%. His E4 will make it to where when the turn starts, he will regenerate A energy, and his E6 will make his Talon's crit rate boost stackable to 3 times, and the duration will increase by 1 turn. Sunday's ultimate can also now apply the Talon's crit rate boost effect, and having the Talon's crit rate boost effect on a target and their crit rate exceeds 100%, every 1% of X's crit rate past 100% will increase the crit damage of the person you are buffing by 2%. For Lightcones, his best one is still his old signature, which makes it to where when the wearer uses skill or ultimate on one ally character, the wearer will generate 6 energy, and the ability's target will receive a stack of him for 3 turns, stacks up to 3 times, and each stack will increase the holder's damage up by 15%. After every 2 instances of skill or ultimate used on one ally character, the wearer will recover 1 skill point. This Lightcone makes Sunday a very comfy character to play. It makes it to where his full 3-turn ultimate rotation is no longer any RNG required, so you don't need to get energy regen from a different Lightcone at a good amount to have it reliable. You don't have to rely on enemies. This Lightcone will make it to where you will always have a 3-turn ultimate. You are also able to further buff the ally you do use your skill or ultimate on by up to an extra 45% increase to damage, and this Lightcone also turns Sunday into an SP positive character, so you can generate some skill points, which depending on the team can be very valuable, which makes this Lightcone overall the best option you still can use. Next option to that would be using Bronia's signature, providing 10% energy regen rate for the wearer, and the ability to recover a extra skill point when the wearer uses their ultimate on an ally that is triggered once after every 2 uses of the wearer's ultimate. When the wearer uses their skill, the next ally taking action except the wearer will do 30% more damage for 1 turn. So extra energy regen rate is going to be nice. Unfortunately, at S1, this doesn't provide you enough for 3-turn ults. You do need this Lightcone at S3 to actually get 3-turn ults without relying on RNG of getting hit. And you can also recover 1 extra skill point every 2 ultimates you do use. So the first time you'll recover 1, the second time you won't, the third time you will, the 4th time you won't, so on and so forth. So a bit of extra skill point gen there, not as good as a signature, but still fine. And the nature of how his kit works, the person you buff is going to be able to act immediately, so they're going to be getting the extra 30% more damage. So it also further increases their damage, which makes this the other option you would want to use. If you have setups on the team, Dash also is good, where using their ultimate will advance forward everyone's action by 16%, and an S5 is 24%. If you are using this Lightcone, be sure you're pairing it with other sources and also speed tuning to actually gain something like an extra turn, because if you're not and you're just acting quicker, in most cases it's not going to do too much, unless it puts you to a point where you're acting before enemies that would otherwise kill you and maybe something like a sustain the setup. Then in that case it would also be effective, so be sure you're actually hitting a requirement for this to matter. Other than that, you can also use past and future, which when the wearer uses skill, the next ally taking action except the wearer deals 16% more damage for 1 turn, and an S5 is 32%. Free to play option, it's pretty much just a much worse version of a Bronia's signature. Compared to an S1 Bronia's signature, you provide 2% more damage, but you don't get the extra skill point or the energy regen. So unfortunately with these other Lightcones, you would require on getting hit to reliably get 3 turns of ultimates, but if you don't have any other option, this is the main one you would use. For relic sets, overall the one you still want to use is 4-piece Relieved Ordeal, 2-piece providing 6% speed, 4-piece allowing the wearer to give 18% crit damage when using skill or ultimate on an ally target, lasting for 2 turns, stacking up to 2 times. 2-piece makes them easier to get to the breakpoint you would need for -1 setups, and the 4-piece can provide the actual person you are buffing up to 36% crit damage, which is also very easy to stack and is just generally very good. This allows you to further allocate more building into speed, as this covers a lot of crit damage. So in the nature of Sunday, who is also going to be primarily buffing the character's crit damage, you are able to further increase the crit damage they gain thanks to the set, which makes it overall the one you still want to use. However, you still can use something like Eagle. 2-piece is useless, 4-piece provides 25% advance forward when the wearer uses their ultimate for the wearer themselves. So in this case, it's really if you're building a super fast Sunday to generate as much turns as possible, which is unfortunately not really a thing you do with any character nowadays because Sparkle just does that better. The only time this is actually the setup you do that is optimal is when you are running a base speed Aglia. A base speed Aglia is built alongside a Sunday that is as fast as possible that usually also wants to run Eagle. That is really the only case where you would use this, but I do want to mention it as the option is there. Hackerspace 4-piece is also usable with the same 2 pieces Relieved Ordeal. 4-piece when the wearer uses their ultimate on an ally, speed for all allies will increase by 12% for 1 turn and cannot stack. 2-piece again makes them easier to build, and with the 4-piece you got to be a bit careful in the instance where the speed percentage buff can actually make the DPS act 1 turn slower than Sunday. That's not really a thing you have to worry about because Sunday's base speed isn't insanely high, and a lot of his characters that he's paired with have higher base speeds. But just in case Sunday does have a slightly higher base speed, if you're tuning very close to each other and the percentage speed buff makes Sunday act first, then your entire rotation is ruined. So keep that in mind, and also to actually run the set, be sure the speed percentage buff is actually getting you to a breakpoint at least. Maybe it helps your team get to like a hyperspeed breakpoint, depends on you, because if you're just using it and it doesn't do much, then there's not much point. Even then, it's overall worse than just running 4-piece Relieved Ordeal, so that's mainly what I would recommend. And if you're doing 2-piece, you would do 2-piece speed, or 2-piece speed with 2-piece crit damage, or 2-piece crit damage and 2-piece crit damage if you really want. So for speed, 2-piece Hackerspace, 2-piece Relieved Ordeal, 2-piece Warrior Goddess, and 2-piece Diviner. This is mainly just to get to your actual breakpoints you want to hit. And for crit damage, Wave Strider or Ever Glorious for extra crit damage to further increase his buff. For the Planar Ornaments, you just use any supportive set you really can. Lushaka is the most common for 5% energy regen rate, and 12% attack for the character position first in the lineup. Usually everyone he's paired off with is attack scaling, and the energy regen is very good for these kind of characters. And if you're pairing him with an imaginary DPS, you can use Penacony for the same 5% energy regen, and 10% damage for everyone that is the same type as the wearer, so in this case they would have to be imaginary. You can use the more outdated ones, although the other ones are better, but if you do use them on teams that don't necessarily scale off attack, in that case something like Keel would have more value with 10% effect res, and reaching 30% or higher gives everyone 10% crit damage. I'm not going to mention Aegis because Aegis is not really worth it. It does give attack to the team as opposed to just one, but in that case you would just be running Lushaka anyways. So mainly you are going to be running Lushaka, and if imaginary DPS you can do Penacony, and for any non-attack scaler you could use Broken Keel. For the main sets on the relics, for the body, you're going to run crit damage. For the feet, you want to run speed. For the orb, you can do HP percent or defense percent. And for the link rope, you can run energy regen rate. For the subsets, first and foremost is going to be your speed goal. Sunday's main thing is the -1 setup. So your goal is to get your actual Sunday to 1-ish speed below your actual DPS. So let's say you're running him with a DPS that has 141 speed built, then you would have to get Sunday to about 140 as long as he doesn't go over the DPS. You can also build the hyperspeed or even higher than that, but hyperspeed Sunday is not really something he has an advantage over because someone like Sparkle just does that better, and that's how you always build her. But in the case where you're maybe running a super fast Sunday with Aglia and maybe even an Eagle setup, in that case you just run as much speed as possible. So 160 or higher alongside just getting more than that if you need to get as much as possible in that case. Past that, the only other thing you really need to focus on is crit damage, and if you're also running Keel, be sure you hit the 30% effect res to get the actual effect. But yeah, past that is just going to be as much crit damage as possible. There's not really a limit, just get as much as you physically can. HP percent / defense percent rolls are not wasted as they are more survivability, but they're not something you would be focusing on. Again, mainly focus on speed to get to the actual thing, effect res if you need it for Keel, and then as much crit damage. Now for some team building, this is really simple. You just pair them alongside any DPS that would be wanting to run a -1 setup. So for an example, I'm just going to use Asheville as you probably saw in the background footage. So the team would be Sunday, Asheville. Third slot will go to another support. Usually in this case, it would be Tribby because Tribby just pairs well with Asheville. Last slot, the reason you primarily are going to run Donning is because of the synergy he does have with Donning Permensatere. Because a lot of characters you pair Sunday with actually don't have a summon, but Donning is able to attach the summon to that actual character. So you can actually enable Sunday's full skill, so it's not just 30%, you get the additional 50% as well for the full effect. And you can also action advance the dragon, so the shield refreshes more, the attack of the dragon if you have the ultimate charges are also up. Dawning just has a good synergy with Sunday. But you don't have to run Dawning. If you don't have him as an available option right there, then you can just use whatever sustain is available, Aventuring, or a healer like Hyacine if you have enough skill points available, whoa, so on and so forth. But in this case, it would be something like this. Different DPS example, I'll just go ahead and put Anaxa here instead. So Anaxa, a support for Anaxa would be someone like Ceridra, so this is also assuming you're not running the Cyrene team. But like a generic team, Anaxa with a -1 with Sunday. Last slot would go to sustain, again, usually someone like Danhang. Dov Danhang sub out, as I did tell you. If you're doing sustain this, then you can put in a support that does work with Anaxa, which is like low-key everyone in the game. But someone like Tribi goes well. Honestly, Ashfell works pretty good with Anaxa too. Cyphers, so on and so forth. And then if you are doing the Aglia setup that I did talk about in this video, then it would be Aglia. You still can do Sunday with Cyrene on the team. If you don't have E2 Cyrene, it's going to make charging a lot slower, but Aglia can get good frequency, and Sunday built so fast can give Aglia and the memo spread a lot. Last slot could go to Hyacine if you need the sustain for a lot of generation for Cyrene especially, or if sustain this, you could also put someone like Tribi. Same thing really applies to any character if you are doing a Hyperspeed Sunday setup. Hyperspeed Sunday setup usually would pair alongside Phaidon because there's not really a reason to do a -1 here unless you have a very low invested in team, just to get ultimate quicker for Phaidon, so the team could look something like this for Phaidon. And again, sustain this, then you would sub that out, go ahead and put someone like Tribi. And that is the full 4.2 updated Sunday guide. I do hope you found this video helpful. If you did, drop a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for future videos like this along with all the types of style content, and I'll see you later. Peace out.